Today I want to talk about something important. One of the most important lessons I've learned from my favorite book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And this is about the third habit, put first things first, and it highlights the time management matrix. It's a simple table consisting of urgent and non-urgent activities and important, not important activities. And it highlights the importance of focusing on one of these quadrants, which I'm gonna dive right into. So, this is the matrix of time management. And at first we have quadrant 1, which consists of urgent and important matters. For example, this can be any crisis at your home, at work, any pressing problems that you may encounter in daily life. For example, going to the bathroom. Of course, that's kind of important and urgent. And deadline-driven projects. Of course, when you have a project and you have a deadline, the sooner the deadline arrives, the more urgent it gets. The second quadrant is the not urgent, important quadrant. And this consists of relationship building, finding new opportunities in life, in work, in your habits, in your lifestyle, long-term planning. So where do you want to be in maybe like 5 or 10 years or even longer than that? Preventive activities. So of course, taking care of your health prevents certain diseases, or investing your wealth to make you more financially independent in the future. Personal growth, which highlights the production and production capability balance, which I will highlight later, and recreation. And I'll come back to that also in a moment. The third quadrant is not important and urgent. And this can be interruptions of any kind that are not important, of course. Emails, some calls, some meetings, they may seem urgent, but you have to ask yourself, is it really important? Popular activities, for example, last night. Of course, we had a great party in our village. Everyone had a good time, it seemed. And of course, it was only planned for last night. But is it really that important? I do think it's important to have a good time. But it doesn't mean that it means you have to spend your time in someone else's recreation if it's a popular activity, but it's not important to you. So keep that in mind and decide for yourself what is important to you and what is just popular. And also proximate pressing matters. For example, I currently need to think of an example, but I can't give any, and I'm making a video I want to get out within 20 minutes. But is it really that important? Maybe it's not that important to make an exceptional example, but I do think it's important and urgent to get this video out. And let's move on to quadrant 4. The not urgent, not important activities. And I think you already know that this is the least important quadrant you can spend your life in. And this consists of trivia and busy work, time wasters. And that's a really good one to ask yourself, what is my time waster? Because it's not important, it's not urgent. Why do I do it at all? Some calls and emails. Of course, you get plenty of junk mail that you can ignore. It's not important, it's not urgent. You get maybe plenty of calls, I don't know. Invites from fans to watch a certain video on Instagram. It's not important, it's not urgent. You get a Snapchat from someone. You see their face, they say something not important, not urgent. And yet you still feel the urge to react, to participate, and it kind of moves back to the quadrant 3, popular activities. And also notice that it also includes some pleasant activities. Here we can already see a distinction between the important and not important quadrants. Here you have in the not important pleasant activities, and in the important ones you have recreation. And I think the distinction is in recreation you take part in the actual creation of fun, of amusement, and in pleasant activities, you are just the consumer of it. You're not the producer. For example, watching television instead of making fun television, like recreation is. And that is also related to the personal growth, the production and production capability balance. You need to take care of your production capability to produce great outcomes. But if you only care about producing great outcomes and neglect yourself, it's not sustainable. If you only focus on your production capability, like become the greatest artist or whatever, but if you don't produce any paintings, no one else is gonna benefit from it. Get those two things in balance and bring it higher. That's the essence of it. Effective people essentially decide which quadrant they focus on. Most people spend their time living in quadrant 1. Every day they're faced with urgent and important tasks that are at the doorstep, and it gives them stress, it causes burnouts. You're always managing crisis and always putting fires out because you're one step behind. And quadrant 3 is probably even worse to be in because you're focusing on the urgent and not important matters. And it gives you a short-term focus. It also only causes crisis management all the time. It's a reputation chameleon character. So whatever reputation you need at that moment, you'll take that form, but it's not who you really are. You see goals and plans as worthless. They're not important. You don't get the feeling that you contribute to anything. And you feel victimized and out of control all the time because you're always one step behind on urgent stuff that is actually not important. And it allows for shallow and broken relationships instead of meaningful, loving relationships. I don't think that's the life you really want, but it's a life that I think many people are in. Yeah, there are also people who spend their time mostly in both quadrant 3 and quadrant 4 because they're focusing on the urgent, not important stuff, gets them in a death spiral, basically get total irresponsibility. They have no say in their lives. And to make up for that, they try to feel good with busy, trivial work, time wasters, pleasant activities to distract their minds, but they're not growing or creating anything. And you're constantly dependent on other people for your basic needs. Effective people stay out of quadrant 3 and 4 entirely. That means there are only 2 quadrants left, which are the important ones. And of course, quadrant 1 draws your attention probably most of the time. But that means it's actually more important to focus more on quadrant 2 activities so that the quadrant 1 activities are minimized. Again, quadrant 1 causes stress, burnouts. You wouldn't want that life in a long-term way. And that's why you have to focus on quadrant 2. So once I learned this, it was one epic eye-opener for my life. It gave me a sense of, hey, I'm in direction of my own life. I have responsibility, which means I'm response-able. And I just need to ask myself the right questions. What do I want in life? Which relationships are important to me? Which opportunities do I want? Where do I want to be in 5, 10, or 50 years? And what do I want to create? How do I want to have fun? And it gave me the power over my life entirely. By focusing mostly on quadrant 2 stuff, I minimized the size of quadrant number 1, and I totally eliminate the not important quadrant 3 and 4. And of course, there's always some speck of quadrant 3 and quadrant 4, but once I realize it, I can decide, I can respond if I want to keep it in my life or not. Do I get consumed by it, or can I distinguish my life from it and move on and grow as a person. Yeah, even talking about this gets me hyped up. It made me remember that moment where I was like, wow, this is what it means to live an awesome life. And it gives me goosebumps just thinking about it again. So I can talk more about this, but it's actually time for you to decide what you want and if this is gonna help you. I want to help you further. This is just barely touching the foundation of it, but there's so much more depth to go into. And I want to help you with that, but you first have to decide if you want to become more effective and focus on the not urgent, important stuff so that you become a great human being who produces great results in their lives. I want to help you with that, so reach out to me and let's figure out this thing called life. I love you, dear stranger.